Okay, so this is me, and this is my family. This is my wife, Sarah Eve. The tall gentleman in the background is my son, Kenneth. You can't tell he's tall right now because he's sitting down. And then the beautiful young woman who you can't see behind the Hanukkah is Ella. And um, I think I've mentioned before to my listeners that my wife is Jewish, so I thought it would be uh, interesting to share a night of Hanukkah in the Heil household with the Grail Country audience. So go ahead, balls in your
Okay.
court, honey.
So, the tradition is to light the Hanukkah candles first and then the Shabbat candles. And I just want a disclaimer that I am not an Orthodox or very observant Jew. So please don't try this at home following me. You could try it at home following people who are more rigorous in their
You probably
practice.
wouldn't have married a guy who used to cook hogs to supplement his living if you had been.
I know, you're pretty compelling. So, so we're gonna say the blessings over the Hanukkah candles, then the blessings over the Shabbat candles. Then we're gonna bless the wine, and then we instead of challah, which is traditional, we have garlic bread because we're having spaghetti tonight. So,
Yes.
okay,
Meatless spaghetti because my son is a zealot.
I'm just following the Book of Common Prayer and what it tells me to do.
yes,
Yes.
he's the
Right there in
Orthodox one in the
1662.
family.
He's a super Anglican who takes the 1662 Book of Common Prayer very seriously.
It,
Okay.
it's the standard in the C of E, and it hasn't changed for a very long time.
Yes, Ken.
Oh, okay. Oh. And just a little note that the candles are placed. Did I place them correctly from right to left? If you're facing that way,
You
yeah,
should ask Ella. I wouldn't know.
and you light them left to right. So I think that's right. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav b'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. And that translates as, Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us and commanded us to light these Hanukkah lights. The second one goes, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim lavotenu bayamim hahem ba'azman hazeh. Amen. And the second one is, Blessed are you, ruler of the universe, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who uh, performed miracles for our foreparents in days of yore. Okay.
Is there anything you'd like the Grill Country audience to know about Hanukkah?
Yes, but let's finish this whole thing and then
Okay,
we'll talk.
all right. Oh, more ritual.
Yes.
Liturgy,
Ritual
always
is
finish
good.
the liturgy, then
Yes.
the
I
sermon.
never really enforce this, but technically,
technically,
no, there's not really supposed to be speaking.
Oh. Uh-oh.
It's okay, especially between the drinking of the
Well-
wine and the eating of the bread. And people would normally, traditionally would go and wash their hands at that
Yes.
time, and then after they've washed their hands, there's no talking. So now the Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us and commanded us to kindle these Shabbat lights. Okay, this one we're going to sing. Baruch atah Adonai. Oh, sorry. It's not. We just did what we've been doing all week. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Amen. Would you like to sit? Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who has sanctified us and commanded us to, who has given us the fruit of the vine. Sorry, got confused there. Anybody else want to sit? No? Okay. And then the challah.
AKA
Yeah, you
garlic
can
bread.
take the. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai, ruler of the universe, who has given us bread from the fruit of the earth. Okay. And So I'll comment a little while you can cut up pieces of the garlic bread and you guys
Okay.
can get dinner if you want. And you don't have to sit there.
Seems natural that way.
Okay. So, in terms of Shabbat, the tradition is you saw me circling my hands above the Shabbat candles, and there's different interpretations of the meaning for that, but the one that makes the most sense to me is that it's bringing in the presence of the Shekhinah, the divine feminine aspect of God. And then when we are blessing before we bless the challah, or bread in this case, we cover it so that, what I was told is that so it doesn't get envious of having to go last. But I'm sure there's some other meaning there. Yeah, so now I'm ready to talk about Hanukkah, but I need a little bit of to fulfill my saying the blessing. Thank you.
Delicious carbohydrates.
He makes very good garlic bread. Okay, so Hanukkah. What do you want to know?
Well, what would you want people to know about it?
Other than the basic historical background.
Well, I grew up celebrating Hanukkah and not Christmas at all. And let's see, I just my recollections as a kid were, yeah, there were presents, but they weren't like big deal presents for the most part. It was especially not like a big present every night, maybe one really cool present during that time. And it was also close to my birthday, so I was getting birthday presents soon anyhow. So my parents had a baby grand piano that my mom had inherited from her aunt, or her great aunt, and we would always have the presents stacked on the piano. And my dad would sometimes play the piano, and we would sing traditional Hanukkah songs. Another thing about, so we lived in a neighborhood that was probably like at least 50% Jewish. It was a subdivision that was modest houses. Now, of course, it's in Southern California, so they're worth a lot more, but at the time, modest. And and so most of our neighbors, or many of our neighbors, were Jewish. Definitely our neighbors across the street and the ones across the street from them. So like every other house. And my dad didn't ever put up lights, but he did have, I think he had a student, he was a teacher, who made him in metal shop, this Star of David that was steel, and it had like one blue bulb in it, and he would put that in our front window. So that was like his way of saying, hey, we're Jewish, it's Hanukkah. So yeah, so Hanukkah to me, I think of my family, I think of the lights, I love lighting candles, I love the smell of burning candles and burning matches, so I love all of that. To me, again, I grew up not celebrating Christmas, and that felt important because to me part of the core of Hanukkah is preserving our Jewish culture, is not assimilating. So that's always been a challenge for me in terms of celebrating Christmas, because it feels like Hanukkah is really about not assimilating and not giving into the dominant culture, and really fighting back vigorously against it. So trying to think what else. I had a funny story about, so again, I said I didn't, until Nathan and I were a couple, I didn't celebrate Christmas. But I was in Israel one year over Hanukkah and Christmas, and we were living in this. Like five of us were at this youth village, which is I think a state-run boarding school, and we were there. We were pretty independent, but our sort of preceptor was coming to visit us. And so they were coming to visit, happened to be Christmas Day. So as a joke, we like gathered some pine boughs and we we're singing Christmas carols when she came in, just to kind of troll her. But we didn't call it trolling because I'm older now, and we didn't call it trolling then. Teasing. I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, so
So what's your fondest Hanukkah memory?
I just think of this Hanukkah, which has been in my family for, I think, about 100 years. And lighting the candles, singing, opening presents, just everybody being in a good mood. And it's nice because it's like, it's a ceremony that we do for a little while, and then we can kind of like go on with our day. It doesn't like take up the whole day. So it's kind of fun to have that.
You said 100 years. Was that before your country came, or before your family came to America?
No.
So it was like, okay. When did when did your family?
So my paternal grandmother was born in 1901, and she was a year and a half when her family emigrated. And I'm not sure as much about the other grandparents, but in terms of what years they came. But I think my paternal grandfather came the most recently, and my maternal grandmother, who I didn't ever know, she died when my mom was young.
Is this from an heirloom from your mom's side or your dad's side?
From my dad's side.
Okay.
But I think her family had been here longer, like maybe came in the late 1800s, and the rest of the family was in the early 1900s.
And how long was your dad's family in California?
So they moved to California when my grandmother was really young, like maybe 3 years old. They moved to Los Angeles, so I'm like almost a second generation Angelino.
Gotcha. Where were they before that, though?
So I don't know. The story I know is that they were in St. Louis for the World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what year the World's Fair was.
I think 1906.
Okay.
I can fact check myself later, but I'm somewhere between 1904 and 1908, though.
Yeah, and so, and then after that they went to Los Angeles. So I don't know if they went through Ellis Island, that particular branch of the family, and I don't know if it's even possible if they went through, like they came through the port of Galveston or St. Louis or something. I'm not sure. So
okay,
more to learn.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then my family, we had a fairly large extended family, but we didn't get together with them very often. So very occasionally we would go to big Hanukkah parties with the family, like the big extended family, and see cousins and stuff like that, and eat latkes and run around and play dreidel. And with my family, we didn't have the gelt, the little chocolate coins, which we have some in the other room. Geld just means money in Yiddish, but does it mean the same in German? I don't know.
Yeah.
But we would play dreidel.
I think literally it's gold.
Yeah.
It's just gold, literally.
Yeah. So we would play with like nuts that weren't cracked, and we had like this really cool nutcracker, not like a Christmas nutcracker, but this really cool nutcracker that we would use to crack the nuts. And I was like very sugar deprived as a kid, so nuts were like a special treat. So.
Oh, really?
When I was little.
Yeah. So, what do you think? What do you think people could learn from Hanukkah? What is the lesson to be learned from Hanukkah as a holiday, or as a celebration?
Well, it's like a lot of other winter holidays. It's bringing light into the darkness. It's the darkest time of year.
Right.
And so I'm sure that it has some roots that are not strictly Judaic in that sense.
No, obviously. I mean, it's
yeah.
Obviously it's a rabbinic holiday, right? So it's definitely, how could it have any other roots? I mean, some symbolism obviously cuts across traditions, and light is a pretty common one. But light into darkness. What's interesting, though, I think the specifics of the Hanukkah story are about like when to fight to preserve light.
Right.
Against the darkness.
And I think that for me as a kid also, like I really responded to the rededication of the temple. That's what Hanukkah literally means, is rededication. And so to me, just the image of the temple being desecrated and then going back in and, restoring it and finding the oil, and there's sort of being this miraculous restoration to
light will shine in the darkest hour.
Yeah. And also, I think that it's also, and to me, there's this sort of sense of this like almost miraculous victory over this incredibly powerful force. I'm sure there were multiple factors in that, but the fact that this like relatively small group was able to win through guerrilla warfare, knowing the terrain better, I'm sure, and all kinds of things, and just outlasting the enemy in some ways. There's a lot of symbolism in that, and I think also a recognition that even when you fight and you win, it doesn't necessarily last forever. So, just sort of knowing that Hashmonean dynasty only lasted so long, I think is interesting to think about too. And I just think to that feeling of being like, you're in your land, this other force comes in, they impose their religion, their customs, their and not only impose them, but like prohibit you from doing yours and actively desecrate yours. I think there's a kind of a common idea of like that's something worth fighting for. And I think as a kid I grappled with that, like, would I really go to war? Like, would it be right? Right. I mean, because I was a pacifist, and so why would I think that there was any reason to go to war? But this seemed like a reasonable, understandable reason to go.
What did you think of the Anthony Baker piece that I shared with you, where he was talking about linking the idea, like Hanukkah, and the idea of just war to Jesus's cleansing of the temple?
So that's going outside of my lane.
I sent it to you.
No, I read it.
You're right. Okay. That's fine.
I'm not going to
way
comment.
Out of your lane.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I kind of had this. I was having this funny thought today, where it was like Advent is like in our household, like we're waiting for the Messiah, but the difference is at Christmas you guys feel like the Messiah came and we are still waiting. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Like we're kind of on the same page right now.
But Christmas Day, it's party time finally.
Yeah, but also it's like there's
saying Hanukkah's not party time.
No,
not for me. I'm supposed to be like, all sober. It's a purple season for me. I'm supposed to be repentant and fasting and
But Hanukkah's had always really good positive associations, and our synagogue. The tradition has been, and we're going to do it again on Sunday, but outside under a tent with masks on, but is to everybody bring their Hanukkah and light together and say the blessings together and be together. And under other circumstances, someone would be in the kitchen. Could have been me or Nathan.
Yeah, I burned myself one time.
I burned myself more than once, but it's a pretty cool kitchen that we have. So, Any other questions about Hanukkah? I know one thing that's interesting is that there's some. So first of all, I want to just say I am not a Torah scholar. I am maybe slightly more than average knowledge American Jewish person, and I would say I'm practicing, but practicing as a Reconstructionist Jew, but that the celebration of Hanukkah was actually a celebration of Sukkot, because that was the nearest festival that was to be celebrated in the temple, and so that was like as soon as they could get in and they could celebrate, that's what they were doing. So that's sort of the 7-day aspect of it. There's some other parallels there, but that's an interesting thing. And then
I did not know.
There's also the question of Hanukkah is, some people will say it's a minor holiday, and in some senses, yes. But I think the other thing is that it's a holiday with less sadness than a lot of holidays. You know, I mean, even though there was clearly suffering and lots of martyrdom in that time, that's not what we focus on. And so, unlike Passover, where we really do focus on the difficulties of slavery, of generational slavery, and the you know, I mean, a lot of other holidays where we have a more bittersweet.
You know, that's interesting.
Like
Yeah, because
Purim,
Hanukkah
too.
is like, as it seems to be a very joyous celebration, as I've seen. I mean, seeing it, you know, being celebrated since we've been together, both you and other Jewish folks that you know. But that's interesting because, like, there's certainly the story. The story itself has definitely some dark elements, but that's not.
Mm-hmm.
But it really focuses on the positive. What do you think that says about Hanukkah or about Jewish people generally, that tend to focus on the positive part of that story?
Well, I was thinking Purim, the Feast of Esther, we do too. Focus, but we're aware there was great danger,
Mhm.
and that is more like narrowly escaping genocide.
Right.
Where, and it's, you know, and then, but this is more, Hanukkah's more historically based than Purim is, but I think that,
Do you want to tell you what Purim is for our audience?
yeah, so it's the Feast of Esther. So when we read the scroll of Esther, and it's very joyous and very exciting and fun, and we dress up in costumes, sometimes of the characters in the story, or just, you know, other things, and we have a party, and it's fun. We eat special foods.
What about the drinking?
And it is a time of year where you're encouraged to get so drunk that you can't tell the difference between the names of Haman, the bad guy, and Mordecai, the good guy. So,
Well, that is quite a challenge.
yeah. But only if you need to stay away from alcohol, that's totally fine. There are other
That was the
mitzvot.
But it's but
Oh,
it,
another tradition associated with Purim that I think that I haven't done, but is definitely done by a lot of other people, is you give these gift baskets, and it's like supposed to have like a sweet and maybe some like kind of a nut and some fruit, so like a variety of things, and you know, give them to other people, and you also, at the time, you're absolutely encouraged to give tzedakah or charity. So
so back to Hanukkah though.
okay.
I'm the one who asked you to explain, because just
Sure.
so people would know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So Ella,
Mhm.
what's your favorite Hanukkah memory?
Oh, that's really hard.
You want to stand up so you're not just a voice speaking out of.
Sure.
She's a
I'm a
from-
boy.
There we go. Hey Ella.
I'm trying to think. My favorite. I don't know if I have like a favorite memory, but I think the Hanukkah part. Like, we usually have like one sort of big gathering, not like big, but like family, friends, and that sort of thing, where they'll come over, and we'll just like have fun together and talk and
Sometimes you
eat.
make donuts for them. You know.
I will be making fresh
Occasions
donuts
happen.
tomorrow.
Oh, there's
so-
that whole oil aspect. Yes.
Yes, lots of fried foods.
Yeah, lots of
To
fried
to
foods.
to recollect the miracle of the oil. But do you remember celebrating Hanukkah at your grandparents' house?
Yes.
Yeah, with this.
You need to tell the Scots about it though, because they would a bunch of Scottish people would convert to Judaism just for the excuse to have 8 days of nothing but fried food.
Well, they already do
Well,
that anyway,
it's not
though.
like that's all we eat. It's fried foods, but we do get to eat some
Just on
delicious fried
just
food.
on this occasion, it's meant to have.
Yeah,
But
and I think that and so just to kind of put in context, so my family is Ashkenazi, and I was actually reading up on Ashkenazi Jews today, and like kind of looking on the map to where my family is from, and that's probably it's a part of Poland, an eastern part of Poland that changed hands between Russia and Poland a lot. But
Overlaps quite a lot with modern Belarus, right?
I think so, but I'm not
So
entirely
not on
sure.
the Lithuanian side,
No,
more
no.
close to the Belarusian side.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, but there are many other Jewish people, probably at least a quarter to a third of Jewish people who aren't of Eastern European ancestry.
Including your daughter.
Yeah. So so there's the other term that sometimes uses Sephardic, but that really refers more to to people who had been in Spain and were expelled from Spain and went to different places like North Africa and all over. And then the Jews who were in Eastern Europe were kind of pushed out of different places at different times, and that was where they could settle. So, but there's another term that's kind of globally for Jews who are not Ashkenazi. That's Mizrahi, which means Eastern.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
So Mizrahi is kind of a global term that refers to Jews who are from Asia, North Africa, Middle East.
So Ashkenazi, what's the etymology of that? Like, what does that come from?
I read today. it's from a name in the Torah it's the son of Gomer.
Oh, okay.
And so it's sort of this like thinking that. So initially, I think it was applied more to the language, but it was about kind of a branch of a family of Judaism, I guess. Could be wrong. Let me know. It's fine. But yeah, it's interesting. That's just, I was reading that today. So yeah. I love Hanukkah. It's not exactly, I don't know if it's my favorite.
What's better about Hanukkah compared to Christmas? Now that you've been in a household that celebrates both holidays.
So I like that it is a little bit more low key. I've always thought Christmas was beautiful. Like, it's just visually stunning. But I like how Hanukkah's just a little bit more, it's not over the top, and it's not like the whole month. And in my family, there wasn't like a huge emphasis on presents, so it's not, I know it's become way more commercialized, but it wasn't as much when I was growing up. And growing up in an area where there were a lot of other Jewish kids, I didn't feel like I was the only one who celebrated Hanukkah. There were lots of other people I knew who celebrated, and my family, big family around, the extended family. So yeah.
Can you share a Hanukkah song with us?
No.
Well, in part, you kind of got to keep a little less. In some ways, if you choose to, you don't have the same problem that Christmas has with secularization in some ways, because you can. That's up to an individual household basis in a way that isn't with Christmas, because Christmas has become such a poster boy for American capitalism.
If you sit there, the mic's not going to pick you up, can he?
It's not picking me up at all.
Well, not if you're that far away. You'll have to, if you want to say something, you'll have to actually come closer.
Well, in some ways, you haven't gotten invaded by secularization in the same way that Christmas has, because it's not a poster boy for American capitalism in the same way. Like, Christmas is the go-to thing for some reason for the American capitalized market, market, and it's become it's merchandise of itself, and in such a way where like a lot of more traditional, even more humble, if you'd like, less over-the-top Christmas practices and ways of keeping Christmas die down the wayside and like get forgotten, and it becomes instead this kind of like month of just selling stuff. And it really sucks too, because it misses a lot of the richness and the importance of the tradition. So in some ways, like, you can, in some ways, it being the like normal thing that everybody's doing, or the top holiday or whatever, is not always a good thing in that way, because a lot of the times it gets like sold and watered down. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I like it. Yeah, it's also a holiday. It's a holiday that's celebrated at home with family. So we do like, but it's not a synagogue-based holiday like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, other big holidays, where there's a component of fulfilling the commandment, or the obligation is to actually go to the synagogue. This isn't one of those, so it's kind of fun. And I do think there are a lot of secular Jews who identify as Jewish, who are cultural, who do light Hanukkahs, and that's still part of their tradition, even if they don't. Maybe they're not saying the blessings, maybe they are. And some people, might say them in Yiddish, or there's a language called Ladino, which was spoken in Spain, and it's a combination of Old Spanish and Hebrew and some Arabic in there, and French. Yeah, so it's an interesting language, and so there's a lot of. What
language did your mom speak growing up?
my parents spoke English. They understood a little bit of Yiddish. My father's grandparents only spoke Yiddish. They didn't speak English.
Right.
On his dad's side.
Right.
And my parents, I think they grew up, my dad was born in 29, my mom was born in 34. And they grew up in a time where they did feel a lot of pressure to assimilate, but I think there was this pendulum swing in the other direction after they kind of saw what happened in Europe and the Holocaust. And so there was my parents, who were neither of whom were very strong believers, I would say, or maybe my mom had that, but my dad was like a proclaimed atheist, even though he said blessings and stuff. They felt like this was really important to preserve. It was separate from it was important, and to me, it's kind of, one thing that's kind of cool about that is that it gave me the opportunity to have that, even if they didn't. You know what I mean? Like, I got to think about God and have this spiritual connection, even if it wasn't coming directly from them. It was like, oh, here's this thing you can connect with and you can attach to. So I just think that's one of the great reasons.
Why do you think they weren't they weren't able to connect with it themselves, even though they encouraged it in their
so my mom, I'm not sure that that's even true of. I don't know.
Yeah, she was learning Hebrew,
No, my mom was
before
very,
she died, and which seemed to be pretty.
Yeah, no, my mom was always very observant as a liberal Jew. It can be.
Yeah.
My dad to some extent, but my dad was a very hyper rational person, and I think that's where it came from. He was definitely not somebody who believed in the supernatural in general.
I probably would drive him crazy.
Yeah, I think it's probably best. That.
Can you imagine the conversation between me and your dad?
You guys would argue so much. It would be ridiculous about politics, about everything. We would argue. No. Yeah. I think it's the order of things, how they happened is probably for the best.
I have a hypothetical question that's totally serious.
Okay.
Is the St. Crispin's Day speech appropriate for Hanukkah in spirit?
I don't know.
Well, how could it not be? Getting people set up for a fight that they can't possibly win?
Oh, yeah.
And that they'll win?
Well, but we did win.
Isn't it? Exactly.
No, but we
and
did.
They did.
Win. Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, with dysentery and all after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's our one of our resident
We'll read our
historians.
Advent poem after, so just hold your horses.
Yeah, and I like this year how Hanukkah and Christmas are set apart, and then that Kenneth is really wanting to have this Advent time, so it just feels like it's nice. There's a gap between Hanukkah and Christmas, and it's not always like that. Sometimes they overlap, and it drives me a little crazy. And he would be perfectly happy to have like dreidels and menorahs and.
Because I'm just that kind of guy.
And Stars of David on the Christmas tree. Like, it's not. Like, that's definitely going to cause my dad to roll over in his grave. So.
Mom.
You haven't heard that expression?
No, I have. It's just like.
So unlike you.
It's very weird to hear you say it, especially like about your family members. It's really, like, uncommon.
I guess you guys like the garlic.
Oh yeah, it's delicious. I made
There's more.
way too much of it.
Okay, well, I think we're good. If there are any questions about Hanukkah, you can ask
Put them in the
comments.
and I'll ask her because I won't be able to answer them. Happy
Well, thank
Hanukkah.
you. Happy Hanukkah.